Hello and welcome to Johncanfixanything. Today we're going to replace an alternator on a 2002 Ford F-150 4.2 liter V6. Now this project is for a friend of mine who actually replaced this alternator a few days earlier, didn't quite get something right on the alternator, and either the alternator was damaged or maybe a fuse was damaged in the process. Either way, it's going to be a very quick video. There's not a lot of frills, so if you want to know how to quickly swap out an alternator for a Ford F-150, then stay tuned. Before we get started, as I do on every one of my videos, I want to talk about PPE, personal protective equipment, safety glasses, gloves, different types of items that you need to keep yourself safe. When you're working around these vehicles, you need to make sure you protect yourself. Safety glasses are the #1 protective item you need to wear. In this particular case, we're going to be working on the electrical system. You want to make sure you decharge that system by taking the negative ground off on the battery. And I'm going to show you that when we start the video. But don't forget the PPE, whether it's a pair of gloves or cover or just a nice pair of safety glasses, don't forget it. It might save your sight. Got the vehicle pulled in and got everything set up. So what we're going to do right here, of course, is the alternator. Now the situation with this is a brand new alternator that a friend of mine installed, and unfortunately it looks like that new or remanufactured alternator is bad. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to swap it back out so we can take it back over to the auto parts store and swap it out because it's not sending a charge to the battery. So the first thing we're going to do is take the negative ground off, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove this hose right here because it's kind of in the way from getting that off. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and take this ground off, and I'm going to hook up the charger for the battery because he completely killed it pulling it in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up for that, and then I'll just let it run. Okay, this takes a 8mm metric. There's nothing complicated about any of this. Just takes the time to do it. So get you whatever type of wrench you want. As long as it's an 8mm. Everything looks in really good shape because he just did this. It's unfortunate that he got a bad take this little thing off here. It's unfortunate he got a bad alternator out of the deal, so that's kind of messed up. So turn that down in there so that doesn't happen. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put the charger on that real quick so his battery can be charging up, and I will be right back. Okay, the best way to take this hose off is with a good old-fashioned pair of channel locks. Just reach in there as tight as you can get it. Take and work that off, just like that. And if you've had it off recently, it shouldn't be a big deal. But if you haven't, then you may have a little problem. And there may be a little antifreeze there, I don't know. But hopefully we can just get this off without doing that and making a mess, which we can. So what I generally will do is just pull that up, and actually I'm going to tie it off. It might work just like, yeah, I'm going to tie it off. So let me grab a bungee cord real quick and I'll just pull that back. Okay, I've got the hose bungeed back now, and I've got a real good view now of the alternator, and it's a pretty simple process. All we got to do is go down, and I think it's a 15. We got to pull a 15mm down here. I'll show you. There we go. So right down there is a pulley, right down in here. That pulley's the one that takes the tension off of this belt. So I'm going to grab a 15mm, and I'm going to pull the tension off of that belt, take it off real quick, and then I'll go ahead and remove I think it's 2 bolts, maybe 3 bolts, and then I'll show you what the wiring is. So I'll be right back. That bolt head down there on that pulley is a 15mm, and so what I usually use is just use a socket and a little cheater bar like this, grab that up. Make sure I got the right one here. Yeah. I'm gonna have to get a little bit better bite on it. Slip that off, just like that. And you just go ahead and let it drop if you want. Pull that back and let that just stay right there. Okay, so now we've got this off, and I'm going to go ahead and take this. This is part of the air conditioner, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this. If I remember right, I think it's a 13. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. These should be 15s as well, these two, so there shouldn't be any issue with that. I've already got a 15 down there, so I think I just need a 13, and we should be good to go. A 13 millimeter deep well works the best. If you don't have that, you just go ahead and get you a 13 millimeter open or closed in socket, and then you can do everything you need to do with that without any problem. I'm just doing it the easiest way I know how, and I've got the tools, so I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. But I think any of those will work just as well. That probably needed a shot of WD-40. It sounds like it's binding up a little bit. At 13, set that up there. That just slides down, slides away. Just push it out of the way. It's no big deal. However you want to do it, just as long as you can secure it. Okay, now we got two 15s, and I'm not sure if that 15 has to come up, but I think it does. I think it's 3 15s, so that'll take a deep well to get that one off, and then these two. So I'll just go ahead and grab a deep well real quick. We'll be right back. I think I can break this with the smaller ratchet, but if I can't, I'll put the bigger one on it. But since it's just been done, I should be able to, yeah. I usually don't take the electrical stuff off until after I've got it out. And then make sure you put these back on with a torque wrench. So if you don't, you know, you're either going to get it too tight or too loose, and that's not going to be good. Yeah, that one actually wasn't even in there the way it should have been. So it's good that we're checking these, because that was too loose. Maybe this one doesn't even have to come out. This may just be a blank that you need to hook that bracket up with, but I'll tell you in just a second as I get it out. And I'm definitely going to put some Loctite back on these. No, it definitely needed to come out, but boy, it was dry as a bone. You always want to put Loctite either way. I mean, even if it's the type that you pull back out, and I think that's what it recommends, is the Loctite blue. You definitely want to use that. You don't want to put these back in dry like that, because when you get ready to change this alternator out again some year, it's going to be a mess. So we'll definitely put these back in the right way. See, that's way too dried out. Pretty straightforward application. There's really not a lot to this. and it's really difficult to get this wrong as far as the electrical connections and stuff go. Okay, and those bolts are all three the same size. I'll show you. Those are all the same size, same length, except this one has got the extra end on it that goes right here on the outside. So other than that, they're all the same. They're all 15s. Okay, so now we got this loosened up here. Good. Pull this out and look at it. I mean, you can see it's brand new. It's a shame. Okay, so we've got, I'll grab my pair of, get a couple wrenches here and we'll look at this. This is just a snap here. You'll be able to see this when I get it around here good. This is a snap, back snap. This is a back snap. This is actually, it's probably an 8 or a 10 bolt that holds this in here. I'm not sure, but I'll go ahead and grab some tools. We'll go ahead and take those off real quick. It's just a couple pull snaps, and I'll just grab a little flat tip screwdriver and I'll be right back. Let me go ahead and just pop these off real quick. And just slip straight out. And if I remember right, this one should do the same. Still got this charging over here. There we go. Little flat tip screwdriver works really well for those. Now let's see what we got here. Pull this up. I thought these actually pulled up. Yeah, it does. So there's what you got here. That looks like a 10. So let me grab a 10 millimeter real quick. We'll be right back, and we'll have this one out. He can go run it back and get him a replacement, and I'll put it back in for him. Okay, got a 10 millimeter. Pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, it's a 10. And again, don't screw up and over tighten these when you're putting this back in. Strip these off really, really easy. And I just dropped that one all the way down. There we go. All right. Let's see what we got here. All right. So there it is. And we'll take it back over and see if we can get it swapped out for him. All right. We're back with the new alternator. And when we checked it, it was performing. They went ahead and replaced it for us. But we're going to have to check that out again. Maybe it's probably a fuse. But I'm going to go ahead and reconnect this. And we'll get it put back in. And I'm going to check the fuses. So this goes back on exactly like we took it off. I'm going to go ahead and put the 10 millimeter nut back on first. And we'll do that real quick, and then we'll go ahead and snap on the two quick connect snaps. Now remember, when you're tightening this up, it's a 10 millimeter. It doesn't take super strong, grip on this without twisting this off. So just be careful with it when you're putting it back on. Don't twist it out. That's about all I give it. It's just about that much. I don't put I don't put anything on it and check the torque or anything. These two connectors are straight up. You can only put them in one way. They won't connect in any other way, so you don't have to worry about getting anything wrong. And they'll click right into place when you get them. This one's a little bit more difficult to get in, but with my fumble fingers here, I'll get it in just a second. There we go. Okay, got them all in. That's the way they connect in. Just make sure you got them nice and tight. And go ahead and pull the boot back down and secure it so that it covers the 10 millimeter nut. Okay, when I put this on, I always work on the top bolt first, and I use that to kind of line everything up. And you'll also notice that I put a little bit of lube on the bolts. They were all really, really dry, so it makes it go in a lot easier. If you've got some blue, I'd use some blue on it. I wouldn't use red because you're going to want to change this out some other time. So get the top one started, and then go ahead and grab the bottom one, left or right. It doesn't really matter. I do the left one because the upper one because it doesn't have the 10 millimeter on the top of it. And you can just shake that around a little bit, and it'll kind of line the alternator up for you. And it'll start fairly easy. These are pretty high strength bolts, so they'll go in pretty easy. Just go ahead and screw them down, finger tight for now. Okay, and get the last one in. And this is the one that has the 10 millimeter extra on top of it that holds the air conditioning. I don't know what that is. It's some kind of a condensation unit for the air conditioner. I'm not quite sure, but it goes and hooks in on the top of this. But and you can definitely go and check your torque specifications on the manual and find out what these larger bolts torque down to. I generally do in cases like this. I'll go ahead and torque them down. Okay, so I got them in finger tight. I'll go ahead and tighten them up, and then we'll go ahead and put that smaller 10 millimeter back on. Again, this is a really simple process to change an alternator out. There's no reason why anyone with a few tools couldn't do this. And then take the bad alternator back over to one of your local auto parts stores, have it checked, and if it's good, great. If it's bad, then you got a bad alternator, and you can go ahead and get a replacement and do this process. You shouldn't have any problem with it. You notice I'm using a deep well socket on these since I've already got it on the ratchet, and it goes right over that 10 millimeter thread that's on that one on the right. That way I can do it as well. Okay, got them snugged up. Now at this point, if you want to go ahead and use a torque wrench, you can. I'm just putting these in by hand right now. Okay, if you reach down real careful and you don't go crazy on this belt, you can pull that belt back up without losing it on the other parts of the engine, and you won't have to rethread that belt. So if you see, I'm sliding that belt right back on, and I didn't have any problem putting it back in. And if you're careful, you can do that. If not, then you're going to have to retrace how that belt goes, and you're going to have to put it back over all the pulleys. So it would probably save you quite a bit of time if you make sure that you get that in right, and just make sure they're all nice and flush up against the other pulleys before you release it.
and go ahead and pull my socket out. Now I've got it all back on. It all looks pretty decent. Just make sure you got everything in right. Now I'll go ahead and put this little unit back on from the air compressor. This is the 10 millimeter we have left over. I'll grab my wrench here. And again, this is a 10 millimeter. It's not like these other ones. These other bolts were very heavy duty, and I doubt if you could even break one of them, but you can definitely strip this 10 millimeter out. So make sure you take care and be easy with it. And I generally make sure that that little bracket portion is not setting up against the alternator. Yeah, I usually straighten it up a little bit like that. Give it a little space. You don't have to, but I do. Go ahead and finish tightening it up. All right. That all looks pretty good. I think we've got it pretty much put back together. I'm going to go ahead and take the hose loose, hook it back up. This is pretty much the easiest way with that bungee cord and getting that hose out of the way, because it does get in your way pretty much if you don't. And it'll slip right back on if you've already broken it loose once. It's no problem there. Then just go ahead and put it back on exactly the way you took it off. I just use a pair of channel locks. You can use whatever you want, but they tend to work pretty well with it. It'll go in wide enough to do it and give you plenty of space on the clamp to put it back on. Okay, now we got that back on, and got everything in position now. So all I have left now is to go ahead and hook the negative ground back up on the battery, and then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to check the fuses as well. So I'll go ahead and take these charging cables off. They've been on plenty long now, so you should have plenty good power. Let me go ahead and pull my camera off the tripod, and I'll just kind of check everything before we get ready to hook this negative up. So there's the hose, and it's all connected back. Check all your connections again. Make sure your belt's on nice and straight. Make sure it fits in all the pulleys and nothing's out of whack there. Check your 3 connectors. Make sure they're clicked in. There's also a little connector up above on this strap right here. You see that connector there, and it goes right in that hole and holds that whole cable assembly off of the engine. So go ahead and if that came out, go ahead and snap it back in, just like that. All right, I think that all looks pretty decent. So we'll go ahead and hook up the negative. Before I hook the negative back up, I went ahead and I checked the fuse, which is the number 11 20 amp fuse on the its alternator field, which is the one underneath the hood here, and it was bad. Okay, so that was probably the reason why they weren't getting a charge in the first place. So I'll show you where that is right now. I already took it out, but I'll show you where it's located. It's located right here. It's the 4th one down on the left. So that's the number 11. It's a 20 amp yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, I've replaced the 20 amp with a new 20 amp. And might be a good idea if you're not getting a charge after you do one of these replacements that you check this fuse first, because I believe that was probably the problem. So we've got everything put back together again, and I'm going to get on with it. Once again, this is an 8 millimeter. So just go ahead and we're practically done. Go ahead and take the negative ground, put it back on. If you haven't already cleaned the post, go ahead and do it. Take your 8mm and go ahead and tighten up the post. I always recommend you go ahead and service your post whenever you're doing any kind of work involving your battery, and this one's really nice and clean. It's a brand new battery, and the posts and everything have already been cleaned. So go ahead and tighten that up. Hand tight, don't over tighten it. And check them both, make sure they're good. Pop your covers back on. I think it all looks pretty good.
All right, so I finished the project up and I put everything back together again. You saw me change out the alternator, and then in the end I found this little 20 amp fuse. This is the number 11 alternator status fuse that's underneath the hood of the truck. I found this to be blown. Now I don't know if this was blown before I swapped out the alternator and that one that we swapped out was a good alternator. I don't know, but it could have been this, it could have been the alternator, or it could have been a combination of both. No matter what, if you've changed out your battery, you've changed out your alternator, and you still have an issue with your truck charging, go underneath the truck hood, open up that box for these fuses, and check the number 11 20 amp fuse. You might save yourself a whole lot of trouble, and you might find the problem as well. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. Better yet, subscribe to our channel. We'd really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.